Ron, we've said it before, we'll say it again. If you're doing a good job at your box, your clients become raving fans and they never leave. But inevitably, people come and go, whether it's relocating, whether it's just time off from doing CrossFit, or maybe it even is, hey, I'm going to join the box down the road. Inevitably, someone's leaving your box, your members leave. I know for me, back in the day, this is really what caused me to want to almost leave the CrossFit space is you take these things very personally.
I don't know where the somebody we all break up eventually is kind of like the moniker. Now, the if you have a good finger on the pulse of what's going on in your gym, like some sort of discussion on the way out the door isn't always required. So I've got a couple of cancellations this month at the gym. I don't need to talk to them. This has been an ongoing conversation for weeks on end. Like one is a prego who's going to be out for 16 to 20 weeks potentially with travel and then post maternity stuff. And so I don't need to do and we've talked about it beforehand. So stuff like that, like I know it's coming. There's another one was, oh, I already knew she was going to be gone after like 6 or 7 months because she's beginning post grad school. We had the conversation on the front end of her joining the gym. So this idea of like chatting with people and the idea of exit interviews, I'll tell you, it hurts most, and people get their feelings hurt and they take it personally because they're not paying attention. Because you got caught off guard because these are surprising to you. That's why people get their feelings hurt.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, way back when, you mean before I had contracts put in place, which is something we encourage and affiliate you before having a better pulse on the community. Like I knew my 12, 20 close buddies that were members of the box, but not the other 100 plus people that were coming in very consistently. Yeah, and you would get that, whether it was a cancellation email, a phone call, a sit down, and it would sting. Like you said, it's a breakup. And I think as a box owner, a struggle is you're dating hundreds of people. You're gonna have lots of breakups. You wouldn't do that in your relationships because eventually you would be like, this is just too traumatic. And that is a struggle for box owners, like keeping a happy face when people leave.
I think what you stated there is part of the problem, which is this idea that yes, I do have a relationship with these people, but it becomes problematic when I look at it as a relationship because now the expectation is that I should be getting something in return other than just the agreed upon exchange.
Yeah, you're right. It's hard. Look, we all get involved in CrossFit because first, like your typical transition to box ownership looks like I found CrossFit, I love it. I'm going to do it every day, and I don't stop talking about it. All right, next, and some people just stop there, but then there's always the people like I'm going to get my level one, and I want to be a coach part time, and then those people, typically go one of two directions. Multiple, like okay, I fall out of love with this thing is always an option, or I want to coach full time while keeping my job, or maybe this is exclusively what I do. And then there's the portion of people that go to box ownership. Point is, most box owners initially start this thing out of just passion for fitness, for helping others. And especially in my world, there was, very little rational thinking like you're doing. Okay, this is what this is. It's like, that's my friend. And my friend is leaving me. And that, I feel like my friend is breaking up with me. And not only that, they're going to a box down the road. So now I feel like they're cheating on me, so it's hard to remove emotion from that.
Well, so I, this is, there's so many aspects to this, which is what, if we look at just the big bulk, like why are they leaving? Right. And if and if the bulk of them look and sound like they're leaving to go somewhere else, there's an entirely set of other problems that we need to address. When I mean, like when they're going to box XYZ, that's problematic. If they're leaving because life circumstances happen, Well, there's nothing you could do about that. Like, it just happens. There is no scenario in which every person that joins your gym stays there forever. Like, it's just not real life. That is unicorn town. Don't move in there. You will be disappointed forever. You know. So look at this, and I get it. I get it. You start this thing, it's passionate. Most of these people, you're passionate about it. Most of these people are friends or family who joined to begin with. So I had a pre-existing relationship with them prior to that is well outside the bounds of this monetary exchange for goods and services. And then at some point I make this transition to a business owner, but it becomes problematic when I keep this other kind of emotional attachment to it. And I'm not saying that you should approach this like a robot and be like, they're all just clients and it doesn't matter. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying. You want to be invested in these people's lives, but only to the extent that it aids both parties. Right. So to some degree, everybody knows this, and this is something that a lot of gym owners struggle with, is I have to keep people at a distance to an extent, right? You only have so much emotional equity that you can dish out. If every time somebody, cancels because they whatever, so life happens, that I get emotionally upset about it. Well, we need to talk about, number one, why you're emotionally upset about it. Number one, it's probably because you are shocked that this was happening
I
because
think
you're not paying attention. Number two, you are attaching a financial loss to these people, which is also problematic. Okay. Why are you upset? Why is it problematic if 1 to 2 people leave? Right? Like, we had a higher than average cancellation rate for the month of April. Right? Did I freak out about it? No. They will come and go in waves. Like, that is, after a dozen years, you will have months that are kind of anomalies. In this world here in Virginia Beach, I can pretty much tell you where they are. They're roughly spring and fall, because that's where a lot of PCS, or if you're in the military, this is where a lot of people transfer and move. Right. So it's not weird. I'll have an outflux sometimes, and then I'll have an influx, or when deployments happen. So I don't get freaked out about it. What I need to zoom out and look at is, month over month, on average, am I getting my net 3 even in these poor months? And I will tell you, that is what happened in April. Even though we had a higher than average kind of cancellation rate, and a higher than average would be like something to the tune of 10, right? But at some point, if you have a 2 to 300 person gym, a 1% turnover
it's good.
is it's good, but it's still a lot of people. Right now, you're talking
Yeah.
about 9 to 10 people every month. So I need to be looking at things like, okay, well, if I'm not bringing in 15 to 20 leads and closing on a minimum of 50%, well, now I have a churn rate problem because I'm not out selling that. So there's multiple things attached to this, and this is what I go back to all the time, which is, none of these ideas exist in a vacuum. Again, it's kind of like the models of fitness. Right, we've got 10 general physical skills, Hopper, metabolic pathways, sickness, wellness, fitness continuum. By themselves, they are not adequate to give the definition of fitness. All the things that we're trying to teach people with regard to running a gym, by themselves, are not adequate to run a machine that just hums. You have to put all the pieces together, right? You have to understand organic marketing. You have to understand offer optimization. You have to understand retention practices. And when one of them falter, you can almost always, I can tell you, after a long time and many, many years of doing this, if I see some anomalies, in air quotes, because they're not actually anomalies, I can almost always trace it back to a drop in one of those pillars of the business, where, like, I got distracted, it didn't get done when it was supposed to, and I can almost undoubtedly attach it to that singular function. So, you have to not be emotional about it, and you have to think about, this is a monetary exchange for goods and services, to which my job is to give services to people, right? And sometimes we break up, and after that, I would challenge everybody, when people leave because they get into grad school, or because they're moving to start a new job, or whatever, or they got promoted and they moved across town and they do go to another gym, you should be happy. Why not being happy is selfish.
I, you've said so much there. Let's stop for a second and think.
That's a
One,
lot. I know. I overwhelmed
you
your tiny little
overwhelmed me.
brain. I over tiny little brain. I get it.
You know, I would say yes. Most people are getting upset. I know I was. Part of it's personal, and part of it is, yeah, that's $150. I mean, imagine you had a normal job, and every randomly your boss was like, okay, not paying you $150 for this month. You'd be like, this is crazy. This is stressful. Like, so part of it is, yes, that is what a lot of box owners did. I know that's what I did. And I will say a lot of that can be fixed and remedied with better protocols in place. The other thing you said that was really smart, and I don't know that all of our listeners caught on to, is that net three. That's something that we talk about a lot with affiliate university clients, and that, these other programs out there are going to throw you 20 or potentially 30 people at any given time. And we know the majority of those don't stick. We know those 20 or 30 people cause stress to your members. And even though you think you're getting this tremendous influx, you're maybe breaking even, if not lose. We have both seen boxes fail with that model. Our model is one of, you need to retain your members by doing an amazing job with them, and then net 3 new members per month. And if you could do that month over month, even when you have those 10 losses, like you mentioned, you're up 36 people at the end. It's, you and I were having a discussion on investing prior to this, and it's no really different than investing in the market. Like, hey, yeah, there's going to be ebbs and flows, but at the end of the year, we're going to be up 36 people. Like, you need to ride out the down months, and you need to not, you are very good at not letting me get manic for down, but also not let me get manic for up. Right. And you need to be a little more even keeled. And that's just a lesson in ownership, in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is not your gig if you're super emotional. And it took me a very, very long time to get over that. Because you said, like we said, you do have those attachments. And one thing that I really get excited about is years later, I've not owned Albany CrossFit for almost, probably longer than I owned it at this point. And when I see someone like reach out, like I found Albany CrossFit in 2008 and they moved somewhere, and 13 years later, they're still doing CrossFit, but they only came in for 3 months, 4 months. That to me is a sign that I did a really good job. Not just in the sense that I opened a box and my coaching staff was good, but think about the impact there. Or for me, like I've traveled and moved around the country, and wherever I move to, I find jujitsu. And if I would have had a really shitty experience at jujitsu on day one, instead of meeting Bruno Tostes in Latham, New York, who to this day is a friend of mine, he did a great job because jujitsu has become a part of my life. No different. We all have those things in life, and you do have to remind yourself of that. Like you got involved in this to change people's lives, and if that's what you're doing, at some point you have to be like, okay, cool. That's still really valuable.
I think the frustration, and number one, I do think it is important to really get to, and we've talked about this before in our previous episode about like breaking even is not okay. Here is what is ultimately at the crux of people getting so emotional about this. When people leave, and this is probably going to stab some people right in the gut, which is kind of the point.
Maybe
you're not really upset that person's leaving. You're not. And here's how I know that. If they left and they continued paying for a membership that they never used, you wouldn't care, right? You're not that good of friends with them. I'm sorry. You know why I know that? Because I've been that guy, right? And this is for all the same people that are, when somebody buys membership and they never show up, and then one day they cancel and you're like, oh man. And I'm like, wait, what are you all manning about? You're definitely not all manning that you never saw them and that you're breaking up with them. You're all manning because you just lost $160, which is lazy and selfish. So again, because that is what this is back to the money thing, right? Which is why you need to run a profitable business so that you can be okay with these interactions, because quite frankly, they are inevitable. There is no scenario, zero. It is not real where you run a gym and nobody ever cancels. It's not real.
No, it's definitely not real. Obviously, there are many things you can do to, I wouldn't say prevent people from leaving. I would position it more as there are many things you can do to retain people. And like
Right.
we've discussed, Affiliate University is all about retention. People that like to ask me, you, what separates Affiliate U from some of these other coaching platforms? And I say, look, we get it. You run a business, you need to make money. But more important than that money is, we're helping you create a business that you just love being at. I mean, look at Fern.
Right.
I mean, every time you see him, he's in his office at the gym, right? If you watch these episodes on YouTube, he's at the gym because he loves being there. People come in, they're your buddies. He has super spreader events every weekend, crawfish boils. He's doing all sorts of things.
I was in Nashville partying it up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to Texas. Like, first of all, we could talk about the fact that you are immune to COVID. I think there's definitely something to be said about your Cuban ancestral blood.
Hey, live fast, live long is the way I like to say it. Live fast, live long.
But at the same time, it's that's really what it's all about. And if you're going to a job or your business every day that you love, there's zero chance you're not making money there, right? And it's the old adage from Glassman, from a lot of people, like, don't chase the dollar, chase excellence. And if you chase excellence, the money will come. And it's the same way we structured our current business with Affiliate U and Best Hour of Their Day. I mean, we've talked about it. We've been putting out these podcasts for over 2 years. And it took 18 to
We just
20
hit episode 400. It's actually more than 400 if you count the least listened to episodes on the podcast, which are your book episodes. So it's way over.
I knew that's what you're gonna say. Yeah, I mean, we've put out probably 420 plus episodes of some sort of podcast, but we didn't do it for the money. We did it because we really enjoyed it. And I mean, look, you don't have to say it. I'm gonna say it. You don't have to say it.
I wasn't gonna say it, and I don't know what you're gonna say, but I know this is gonna be a moment of self-promotion.
This is
So go
no,
ahead.
it's just
Soak it up.
I feel like you started this thing just because you wanted to spend more time with me. You enjoyed talking to me. You look at me kind of like a mentor, like I inspire you a lot. There's just so I just want to say you're welcome. It's been a couple of years. We probably should have gotten this out earlier. You're welcome. If you need anything, I've helped you through a lot of tough times in your life.
You should ask my wife. You should ask my wife how much I use the term. I'm gonna choke him. I'm going to choke him to death.
I am curious about that. I mean, I really rarely say anything negative about you to Roz, and mostly because
I mean, I get it. The listeners get it. Everybody gets it, but you.
I was gonna say I can go off. Trust me, there's plenty of things you do negatively, but I will say, in my this day and age, 42, 2021, I try to look at the positive, and I would recommend that kind of on this note with this episode. It's like, look at the positive rather than saying this person's leaving. Like, hey, they were here for this long, they were a good member. Focus on that. But
I mean, I'll give everybody a real life example of this. So we had a guy. He was here. He's been here for he just had his 4-year anniversary at the gym. Within the last couple of months, I don't remember.
4 years. I mean, you assume if somebody's been there 4 years, they're a lifelong member.
I mean, you want them to be, and he's a fantastic guy. He left a couple months ago. He canceled. He got a new job, and I'm gonna back into this in a second. But he just randomly sent me an email. He's like, "Hey, I just had a break at work, and I just wanted to send you an email and just check in and see how you're doing." So we traded emails a couple times. He's a fantastic person. He's just a good human being. He told me he's almost getting double unders, and this is a guy that he was like working on some weight loss stuff, and he's been doing a lot of running in his vest because he's really excited about Murph. So he like filled me in on it. And he's at another gym and he's enjoying it. So, but the point was, he's been here for 4 years. He went through a real tough bout of unemployment because of COVID stuff. And we scholarshiped him because he was like, I got to cancel. I was like, don't cancel, come in. At this point, I was trying to take care of everybody that I possibly could to prevent people from getting depression and all these other things. So I was like, dude, just keep coming. I don't care. Like, we'll figure it out. At some point in there, he's like, hey, we figured out, my wife and I, we want to pay. And I said, I don't care. He's like, we want to pay. I'm like, cool, you can pay. It's fine. And then he comes to me and he was just like, hey, he actually cried on his last day, but he told me he cried like when he left. Right. Because he's like, he just had to leave very abruptly. He's like, I got super emotional. And I was like, I get it, man. Like, it's cool. Like, we're going to miss you too. But truth be told, I had a very small portion of the old me when he told me he got this new job, and I was like, oh man, he's leaving. And I'm admittedly, it was like a fraction of a percent of me was like, oh, that's lost revenue. And then I told myself, I was like, dude, this guy's been unemployed for like 6 months. Like, what is wrong with you? That is the initial reaction that you had to this. And I was like, snap out of it, dude. That's the old you. Don't do that shit. It's gross. And I was like, bro, I'm so stoked for you because I know this is a big deal. Like, you've been struggling with this whole thing. Like, you got a job. This is amazing. Congrats. I wish you guys nothing but the best. You know, he's got a wife and a kid and a son and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, it's great. But there, that still exists in there. So I'm like, I need to talk to myself about that. Like, that's not okay. That this guy had a really positive interaction, and there was still this little tiny piece inside me that's just like, oh man, it's $170, like whatever. And I'm like, that has to go away. It can't be that about it anymore. Now, the way you fix that, which is where I was going with that, is people are upset because they have not put the tools in place to make sure that this isn't the thing that it ends up being all the time, which is like, I just lose this revenue altogether. Right. So do you have agreements in place where there's going to be some sort of fair trade for both parties, right? However you structure those. What are your hold and cancellation policies? Because realistically, if somebody does submit a cancellation, it's not like I don't get that revenue. If I have a proper cancellation policy in place, which is, 30 days notice, which is not weird at all, industry standard probably, I have 30 days to make that up. So if I did have these cancellations, they're not actually going to manifest themselves financially until next month, which is fine, right? So now I'm like, okay, cool, we got to make that up. And then I should be putting in all the typical retention practices. And then the last piece is, if these come across, if you're doing all these things and they come across, I'm like, that one's weird. I don't know about that one. Like, why is that happening? And I know pretty regularly, like that one comes across, I'm like, that one's weird. Somebody's got to nab this person and figure out what the deal is and have a conversation with them. We've talked about this before. This is when you can put an exit interview in place. Just be like, hey, what is going on? Because a decent portion of these you can save by just giving them an alternate solution because they don't pay attention.
I agree with you there, and as we talk about these exit interviews, yeah, I think one of the purposes of these is sometimes you need to sit down and just talk to them, and you may be able to keep some of these members, especially the ones you're always going to have people that are moving. You're
Right.
going to have college kids that are graduating. You're going to have people that in the summer they like to run, or they, whatever it is, that's fine. But then you're going to have members that either considering going to a different box, or they're like, man, this CrossFit just isn't for me anymore. And you're like, wait, doing functional movements is not for you, like squatting isn't for you. Like, you need to have those conversations. So exit interviews can serve multi-purpose. One is potentially, I mean, I don't know, Fern, maybe out of every 10 exit interviews, 2 are ones where the relationship can be salvaged and you can keep them there.
I would go as high as 3 or 4 if there's not like a pretty binary reason for them leaving. If it's not like they're moving or something along those lines, you for sure should figure out what is the genesis of them leaving, because you may have a solution that they're not aware of, or you can now create a solution because other people will follow behind this person and have the same feeling at some point. Or they're like, oh, my schedule just doesn't work. Cool. We have open gym. I'll see you tomorrow between 1 and 3. That's an open block of time. Come in here. I'll give you a workout. And they're like, I can do that. I'm like, you can do that. I'm like, I didn't know that. I'm like, we've only said that 4,000 times, so you can solve those problems. And a lot of them you can head off at the pass by doing check-ins if you haven't seen somebody in a week. And again, we've talked about this before as well, but these are where retention practices come in place. But all of these are based on getting people results, which is what they came in for. If they're leaving, it is typically because they're not getting results. They're not happy. If they love it there and they're getting what they want out of it, either emotionally or physically or both, they're not going to leave. They will figure out a way to stay. So, and this is hard for people to swallow, but what am I not doing that is the genesis of this person leaving? What are they not stoked about? And again, I wish I could remember. Typically, more often than not, people leave CrossFit gyms not because they had a bad experience. They typically leave because they become indifferent about the experience. They don't love it. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just money that I'm paying that is now exceeded the threshold for what I'm getting out of it. Right.
Yeah,
which is the $29 threshold, which is why that is way under that threshold, which is why those other businesses exist. That's why that model exists, because it's under the threshold. What CrossFit gyms are charging, which they should be, is way above that threshold. So if I'm not getting what I'm paying for out of it based on my perceived value, this is when I become indifferent to it. And the threshold for most people is too high to continue to pay that.
And here's what that typically looks like before they leave. If you're a box owner or coach, next time you're in class or next time you're watching, look around and think about which members basically know their shit. In other words, they don't ask what a thruster is. They can do most workouts, RX. They don't really need to know their scaling, but they show up and they get their workout in. Those are the people that when you're charging 150 to $200 a month, and they're like, wait a second, for $2,000, I can outfit my garage forever. Or every global gym right now has a CrossFit area, whether they call it a functional movement area or what. I mean, every global gym has bumper plates and kettlebells and wall balls and boxes. For $20, I can do that. Those are the people that you need to be aware of. And if you're not doing things to continue to keep them involved, to continue to keep them motivated, and also things that we talk about, like your events, your perceived value builders, things that are helping grow your community, those are the ones that are gonna leave. You're not losing. I mean, you run the risk always of losing someone newer who needs to lose weight because they were intimidated, they didn't have a good
Right.
experience. It's rarely that. It's always like you say, the people that are, well, is this really worth it anymore?
Right. I'm not getting what I'm like. I kind of know this stuff. They're not really helping me. I'm paying for a service that no longer delivers. And now what I'm really considering is, hey, can I just do open gym? Like those are your people that are at risk.
Yeah, I mean, look, Rogue is. We were watching a movie on Netflix, and they had Rogue in it. Thunder Force. Like they had the soft boxes. They were doing box jumps. It's
What the hell
crazy.
is Thunder Force?
It was like some dumb comedy that we were watching. It's new.
Okay.
It was like it was entertaining. But there was a scene in it where they had Rogue boxes, and I was just like, man, Rogue is just all over the place. And you know, I don't have I told you that. I mean, I've been a long time supporter of Rogue Fitness. Going
I
back
think I think I may have heard this story has something to
going
do with
back
Body by Jay. But
2007.
listen, everybody, we're gonna give a slow clap, right?
I wouldn't.
Because this is the longest stint Jay has gone without mentioning his, in air quotes, relationship with Bill Henniger and the fact that he purchased from Rogue when he was running Body by Jay. So I will now tell the story for you.
No,
Long time ago, guys, Jay put Rogue on the map because he ordered, I don't
ring,
know,
ring.
a rings or a piece of chalk or something, and then since then they've been on the up and up. So
It's a direct.
congratulations, Bill and Katie. You would not be where you are today without Body by Jay.
There's a direct correlation between me shopping with Rogue and their, vast improvement. Do you think Rogue will ever go public?
I doubt it. I don't.
They don't need
They
to, right?
wouldn't. They don't need to. Like typically, companies go public for cash flow,
Yeah, they
which
own
they
Ohio.
don't need.
He literally bought Ohio the other day. I
But yeah,
saw
it's Columbus is just gonna get renamed to Rogue, the city of
that.
Rogue.
Rogue, Ohio. That's cool. Look, I don't doubt within 20 years that can happen. So anyway, let's tie a bow on this. Exit interviews are vital. Before we wrap up, give me 2 or 3 questions that are a must ask at these exit interviews.
Number. I'm not a fan. So this is the same thing as bringing people in. I'm not a fan of this checklist that people go through. So if you have in your mind they come in and you break out the clipboard, you have already ruined this interaction. So don't do that. Approach this from a human standpoint. Be empathetic. They're leaving. Like if you don't know, literally just when they sit down, be like, hey, I just wanted to chat with you. I wanted to get some feedback and find out like what it is that's going on because you're leaving. Right. So they come in, hey, tell me what's going on. And they're like, oh, I'm just work. It's work. I'm stressed, like blah, 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 blah. And then if you have a solution, provide them a solution. If they tell you that something else has come up and they have had a life change, ask them how you can help them. Is there anything that I can do that would make this transition easier for you? Can I help you move some stuff out of your apartment? Can I do whatever? Like there's another lady in here yesterday that her and her husband, she came in before class. She told me they're staying. They just started. But anyway, but the point is like help them. She's like, we went down to one car. And at the end of class, she's like, is anybody going towards the other direction? I was like, I'll take you home. Like, she's like, you don't have to. And I was like, I know I don't have to. Like, but I like you. You're cool. I'll drive you home. So I drove her home afterwards. But so it's like, find out what it is. If you have a solution, provide it. If you don't have a solution, ask them how you can help. Is there anything I can do for you? Like, can I send you at-home workouts? Can I provide a dumbbell or something? You like help them, right? Going back to a no is not a no forever. A cancellation is also not a cancellation forever. They very well could come back if you make the breakup pleasant.
That's really it. Be willing to talk to them. I like the idea that it's not a script. It's a sit down. Maybe do it at a local coffee shop. Maybe you do it, do it where you're not going to get distracted. Worst case scenario, they're leaving. What better way to have it, how many breakups have you had where you're like, hey, we're still friends? No, it doesn't happen. The girl hates me, she blocks me on social media, etc. But if you can end every one of these relationships on a positive note, when and if they do decide to continue to do CrossFit, guess what they're going to do it at your box. And if you do it right, you put them into a campaign, your email campaign, where they're still hearing from you, or maybe you leave them in, the one where you're talking about the member of the months and the events. Maybe you invite them to an event even though they're not a member.
Right.
Do all these, treat them like, not like dollar signs, but the same way you treated them on day one. And firstly, it's less likelihood that they're going to leave. But secondly, even if they do think they need to go, or they're going to come back.
Many of them will come back. That just happened Saturday. So yesterday, we had a guy leave, I don't know, maybe a year ago. He's an airline pilot, was going all, but wasn't flying. And then he was trying to help his wife's business and he came back in. But a lot of things have changed in this. So we've gotten rid of some memberships, one of the old ones that he was on. And he's like, I just don't want to pay that price point. I was like, cool. If you do the paid and full option, it's like about as close as I can get you to the previous price point that you're at. And he was like, all right, I'll just do that. Cool. That's a win because we left on good terms. I wasn't like, fuck you, guy. Like, I can't believe you're breaking up with me. I mean, like, you're so busy, you can't make time to work out. Like, don't approach it from that standpoint. I was just like, cool, we're here when you're ready. And if you don't already know this, guys, like, it works in cycles. Like, people get really into it and then they'll have a little fall off and then they'll get back into it and stuff like that. So just be prepared to help them out when they come back. Remember, that's what we're here for. We're here to change people's lives, and having negative interactions with them because you're upset about losing $150 is short-sighted, right? Think about the long-term implications of like keeping this relationship intact, both for you as a business financially and for them getting what they want out of this. So again, approach it from a human standpoint and just don't think of it from a standpoint of like, what am I losing? Think of a standpoint of like, what can I do for them regardless of how this unfolds?